Hey everybody, Caleb Brooks with the Alabama Baseball Coaches Association, and I'm joined by legendary Hall of Fame pitcher, Mr. Tom Glavine, who will be our speaker tonight here at the Miracle League First Pitch Dinner. And first of all, Mr. Glavine, just want to thank you for coming here and being a part of this. I mean, this is just such a great event that Barry Dean puts on every single year. He does it for such a great cause, and so we just want to first off thank you for coming here and being willing to be a part of this with us.
Well, I'm excited to be a part of it. I know Barry and I have talked for a couple of years to try and make this happen, and finally, scheduling-wise, everything worked out, so I'm excited to be here.
Doing this, you know, this has got to be the coolest part of being who you are now, when you get to come back and get to do things like this and be a part of good causes like this. And when you're a Hall of Fame pitcher and you have people, you know, pulling you all over the place, I mean, getting to come and you know, do something to give money to people that need it and that need to, you know, be a part of something like the Miracle League is that one of the coolest parts and most fun parts for you?
Well, I think it's one of those things that certainly is I've never taken for granted, and it, quite frankly, it's humbling. You know, I've always felt like as an athlete, professional athlete, the ability that I have had because of that. To give back to my communities, to help raise money for worthy causes is something that I've always tried to take advantage of, respected the fact that I've been able to do that, and tried to do it. So, you know, it is pretty neat knowing that just because of what you do, you're able to raise money for different causes. Now, the hard part is trying to do everything that people ask you to do. You know, the hard part is trying to schedule stuff, find time to do stuff, not overdo it and take away from my family or things that I want to do. So that's always the hardest part. Scheduling is never easy. You know, usually when people ask me, hey, can you come do this, or can you come do that? You know, the first thing I do is let me look at my schedule, which is mostly my kids' schedule, whatever, you know, games they're playing or wherever they're at. That takes precedence. So if it works out where none of that's going on and I can do it, then I'm usually excited and happy to do it. So like I say, that's why this situation here, Barry's been after me for a couple of years. You know, and I had a son in high school that was still playing high school lacrosse. I had one at Auburn that's still there playing baseball. So all those worlds had to marry, so to speak, and just turned out that this was the year.
You just mentioned your son that is at Auburn, and obviously he's playing, you know, at Auburn for Coach Tim Hudson, who's the pitching coach there now. And how cool is that for you to watch him, you know, living out his dream, playing SEC baseball, and then he's getting coached by a guy that you obviously know very, very well? You
know, it's exciting for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, because like you just said, he's playing college ball, right? As a kid, he wanted to play, you know, obviously play high school ball. Once he got to high school, he wanted to play college ball. You know, now he wants to play professional ball. So he's taken all those steps along the way. And you know, look, quite honestly, for him to go to Auburn and pitch in the SEC at the time was probably a little bit of a stretch. You know, he wasn't a super big kid coming out of high school. You know, he had a lot of growing to do. He had a lot of growing to do as a pitcher. So I knew it was a little bit of a stretch, and his first 2 years were a challenge. You know, he didn't pitch a lot, and then his junior year, COVID hit, so didn't even play his junior year. He was hurt when the season started, and when he came back, the first weekend he came back was when everything shut down. So he's really had to earn his way to where he is now, where he's pitching a lot now, and he's become a trusted member of that pitching staff, and so it's been really gratifying for me to watch him grow, but also have to earn his way into being one of those guys. It wasn't handed to him. He had to go get it, and now for him to be doing it and doing it under the tutelage of Tim Hudson, look, it means the world to me, because I know, you know, I've always felt good about him going to Auburn and playing for Butch, because Butch is such a good man. To know now that he's got that added layer of Tim Hudson, and knowing what Tim is all about as a person, knowing how Tim is going to work hard to make Peyton better and give him every opportunity to succeed. I mean, again, how can you ask for a better situation for your kid?
For you, you made a big transition from being a player to then now doing what you're doing, calling baseball games and getting to do that type of stuff. Talk about that transition and just what that was like for you, and what were some of the hardest parts of making that transition from a player to being an announcer?
I will say this, from going from the field to the booth, the game's way easier in the booth, I can tell you that. There are things that are painfully obvious from the booth that aren't so obvious on the field. I think one of the things when I decided I was going to do this, and I had different people that wanted me to do different things, and I ultimately settled on doing what I'm doing for the Braves because they, what was initially Fox Sports South and now Bally Sports, they pretty much give me free reign on my schedule. So I get to pick the games that I want to do, which is very helpful for me because, again, I can kind of pick it around things that my kids are doing, things that we're doing as a family. It gives me an opportunity to stay around the game without having a crazy schedule. So that part has all been great. But when I made up my mind that I was going to do it, I wanted to remind myself each and every day when I sit in that booth and call a game that the game's not that easy. It looks easy sometimes from the booth. It looks easy sometimes on TV. And I can promise you there are times where I'm sitting there calling a game and I'm watching a pitcher and the next pitch that needs to be thrown is really obvious. But when you're down on that field, it's not always so obvious.
Yeah.
I can sit there and I can watch a guy swing at 2 straight breaking balls and really look bad and think, my God, please throw that pitch again. And I can promise you when I was on the mound, I would throw 2 straight changeups and there'd be 2 awful swings, and my thought process would be, he can't possibly do that again. He's not going to swing at that the same way. So, that's the stuff that goes on the field that makes it difficult. But like I said, I've enjoyed it. It's been fun for me to grow as a broadcaster, get better at it. But it's like I said, it's been a fun way for me to stick around the game, which I obviously love and enjoy. Without having a major commitment like I did as a player. 162 games a year is, not only is it a big commitment for me, it's a big commitment for my wife and my kids and everybody else. And while I'm not ready to do that to them again to that extent, it's a nice mix, like I say, for me to be involved but not be too crazy with it.
Has being a part of the media now kind of changed your opinion on the media from when you were a player, answering questions, doing all that type of stuff, to now being that guy that is doing that part?
I see it a little bit. Like I don't do a lot of interview per se with the players. Everything I do is color analyzing the game and what's going on. I will say that being on this side now and seeing other people that have to do it, I appreciate when an athlete is accessible and when they are mostly honest. I mean, look, every athlete is going to be a little bit guarded in what they tell you for obvious reasons, but I have a different appreciation for it. Now, as a player, I always tried to be that person. I always tried to be, and I shouldn't say I tried to be, I was. I did it, and I didn't like players that didn't do it. But you are accountable to the media. When you play, you're accountable for your performance, good or bad. I was always mindful of people who were trying to do their job and had a certain story they wanted to do and needed your cooperation to talk and do all that stuff. So I was always mindful of that as a player. I think I'm mindful of it still, but in a different way because I see the other side of it now, and I know how important it is for people who cover the game to have access to the players. And get the players to give them that interaction. I see how important it is now. Like even though I don't do it on an official capacity in terms of talking to players, this last year and a half, not being able to go down in the clubhouse before a game or after a game and talk to the guys, talk to Brian Snitker, talk to his coaches, it's hard. Because you don't get a sense for what's going on with the team. You don't, if so-and-so's struggling as a hitter, you might, it was really easy for me to have a conversation with Kevin Seitzer and say, hey, what's going on? And not that you would reiterate everything that went on in that conversation, but you had a better idea that you could then relay as a broadcaster on TV to let people understand, what's going on, what they're working on, what's been clicking, what isn't. So, that side of it, as a broadcaster, like I said, I really appreciated that access and being able to talk to guys off the record, so to speak, but kind of be in the know a little bit. So not having that access for the last year and a half, it's been tough.
Oh, no doubt about it. And, we talked about your son earlier, but you got to see his recruiting process and what that was like, and you did all the travel ball stuff with him. And when you were coming up, all that wasn't there, and we didn't have all this perfect game. And so, number one, how much has that part really changed over the years to you? And then what is one thing that you see that, you would like to advise kids that are going through that process now that they should kind of consider and keep in mind?
That's a great question. Here's where I think the biggest difference is. When I was a kid, I played the game because I loved it. And that's all I knew. And I'm not suggesting that kids today don't play the game for the love of it. I think they do. But there is so much more talk now from parents about, I want my kid to play at the next level. And I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, maybe 10 out of 10 times, when I hear a parent say that, that means they want their kid to play professional ball. In reality, the next level might be high school, right? It might be college. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is professionally. But I think the notion that parents have that their kids are going to play in the big leagues, I think is not only misguided, I think it's hard for the kids. Because the kids then get put into this pressure vacuum of, I got to go, I got to go, I got to go. And the parents are putting pressure on them. And for me, with my kids, I had that conversation with them. I said, and fortunately I lived it, so I know how hard it was. But I've always tried to be realistic with my kids, especially Peyton being a baseball player. Look, the next level might only be high school baseball. If you're fortunate enough to play college, great. But do you understand that going from high school to not only college, but Division I college, that's a small percentage of people. And then when you go from college ball to being a professional player and playing in the big leagues, that's an even smaller percentage. So the odds are against you. I'm not saying you can't do it or you won't do it, but you need to be realistic about it. And I think that for a lot of people, they've lost that realistic view of what it is. And I think because of that notion of playing at the next level, being the professional level, it's taken fun out of it for the kids because they're being pressured by their parents, they're being pressured by their coaches, they're being forced at such a young age now to pick one sport, specialize in that one sport, and I hate that. I hate that for the kids. I played 2 sports up until the day I had to decide which one I wanted to go play. And I see more and more kids that are playing a couple of sports until the age of 12 or 13, and they're being forced to pick one. Mm-hmm. And that just, it kills me. So that's the part that's different. When I played, like I said, I played obviously for the fun of the game. I played Little League Baseball where I played maybe 20 games a year. Played high school. When I got into high school, I played high school ball. We played 20 games a year in high school ball. I played American Legion ball. We maybe played another 20 or 25 games, and that was it. It was over. And it really, for me, was not until my junior year in high school that I ever thought about playing professionally. I wanted to go to college and play, and I wanted to go to college and play hockey more than I wanted to go play baseball. But it became apparent to me as a junior in high school that I had a chance to get a college scholarship, mostly to play hockey. It became apparent to me my junior year of baseball that I had a chance to play professionally. When I showed up to pitch every year as a junior, there were 30 people behind home plate with radar guns, so it wasn't hard to figure out that, okay, well maybe I'll get drafted, right? But it really wasn't until then that I ever thought that. And my point is, I think that kids and parents now are thinking that earlier and earlier, and it's taken a lot of the joy out of it. And I think that's why you see a lot of kids get burned out and stop playing, when they get to high school. And I hate to see that.
Mr. Glavine, we're crunched on time here, so that's all we're going to have time for. But I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with me. And again, just want to reiterate that we appreciate you being here, appreciate you being a part of this event. It's for such a great cause with the Miracle League. And we get to see Barry Dean go and put all these smiles on kids' faces all the time with this. So really appreciate it and look forward to hearing you speak with us here tonight.
Glad to do it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.